It's not started yet. Just go ahead and talk.
Oh, okay. So we can just talk.
Okay. All right.
Okay, it's on.
Hi, Wandalee.
Hi.
My name's Tina. Could you tell me about your family?
Let's see. I had, well, my two parents, and I had 4 brothers and 1 sister. Kind of a spread out family. I was 18 when my sister, the youngest, was born.
18?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, I was just about leaving home at that time. So I wasn't real close to her when she was real small, but then we made up for it later. Then I had a younger brother. I was 13 when he was born, and we were real close because I took care of him a lot. It was fun.
You took care of him a lot?
Yeah, and I think my name was the first word that he ever said.
Oh, that's neat.
It was neat.
That is neat.
I had a lot of fun taking care of him.
You had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you give me some specific ways that you took care of your brother?
Just keep him entertained. You know, I would do this stuff like feed him, give him his bottles, and change his diapers too. But mostly, probably, it was just keeping him entertained and happy while my mother did her stuff. So a lot of the time, I got the fun part of it.
You were like a mini mom?
Yeah, actually, I was like his second mom. And he called me Mimi all the time that he was real little. That was his first word, now that I think of it.
Could you give me some specific examples of how you made up time with your sister, your youngest sister?
Oh, well, let's see. I'd go visit her I lived a long ways away, but we'd go visit my family about every 2 years for a week, you know, so we didn't really see each other a lot, but still we were close anyway. And then when she was about 15, I think, she came up to stay with me where I was living in Washington, and we hit it off, you know, really good. And then not long after that, I moved back down here, and she stayed with me at my house part of the time because I had separated from my husband, and we spent a lot of time together for one whole summer. And then I moved away again for a while, but we just really bonded in that summer.
If you hear it turn off, let me know.
So even though you were 18 years old when she was born, later on when she came to live with you and you guys spent more time together, you realized that you guys could really become good friends.
Oh yeah, we were like best friends that summer. And in a way we still are. Maybe not best friends, but we're still close. Which seems unusual because we weren't around each other very much all the time that she was growing up in her childhood.
So almost like she really wasn't your sister, but just a person that came into your life and that you could actually get along with.
Yeah, yeah. And now she seems like my sister because I've been around her continually now for a few years. But yeah, it's funny how we just bonded after not being together for so long.
Could you tell me what your life with your parents was like?
Well, with my father, it was real strained.
Strained?
Yeah, he was real authoritarian. He's what I would call a control addict. I mean, real severely. So I always felt real stifled by him. And at the same time, I loved him, although by the time I reached my teens, I pretty much figured that I hated him, and there was a lot of rebellion, a lot of problems.
Rebellion?
On my part. I was sort of the hero child in my younger days, and then turned into a complete scapegoat. But with my mom, we got along real good, but she got along with most people. She was really mellow and sweet and kind and gentle. And so there just wasn't much for me to not get along with. And I just really appreciated her. They were like complete opposites, you know, from yielding and gentle to really stern and controlling. So,
did that cause a lot of conflict in your family?
No, it didn't, because my mom was so yielding. She would just do whatever my father wanted, and she liked it that way, which I thought I couldn't understand, but they thought that's how it was supposed to be. So for them, it seemed to work okay, although I can't imagine that she was really happy that way. There were a lot of signs maybe that she wasn't, but she would never admit it or give in to it, and she just sort of seemed to need that for her security.
So even though your parents have completely opposite personalities, you really didn't have very much conflict in your family as far as the relationship between them.
Right. Yeah, because Mom would just do whatever my dad. Yeah, that's right. And so for them, it seemed to work out okay. And the main conflict was between my father and myself or my brothers.
Yourself and your brothers, or your father?
My
and your
father
brothers?
and my brothers. Yeah.
Father and your brothers.
And some between myself and my brothers, but I had one brother who was a year and a half younger than me, and we got along usually really good. We were real close. And then the brother who was a little younger than him was kind of the bratty one and drove me nuts, and so we didn't always get along real well.
Could you tell me about types of family activities you enjoyed while being, living with your family?
Oh, well, we would, once we moved to Oregon, I was about 9, going on 10 when we moved, we started going fishing all the time. And my dad bought a little fishing boat. He had several of them at different times. And he would take us fishing, and we loved it. It was great. It was like a whole new world.
Okay, I'm sorry for the interruption, Wanderly. You were talking about fishing with your father, but your mother could not go or did not attend fishing trips?
Yeah, she couldn't swim. I think maybe that had a lot to do with it. Also, I think it was that she just wanted time by herself. She just needed time by herself because there were a few kids, and maybe she just wasn't interested in fishing. Also, I'm not really sure, but at the time it seemed completely normal, and there were enough of us. My brothers, my dad, and me, that we could all have fun together, so that's what we did. And it just seemed like a normal, in my family it was normal, she would stay home and do her home stuff, and the rest of us would go out in the great outdoors. And I was a tomboy kind of girl, so.
A tomboy?
Yeah, I was. I climbed trees and played with bugs, and I never played with dolls. So I fit in real good with my brothers and my father doing fishing and stuff like that. And something else we did was with my grandfather. He was a rock hound, and he would go out and collect rocks and then bring them home and work on, make things with them, tables and jewelry and stuff. And so we'd go hang out with him and watch him do the rocks and help.
Learn a lot about rocks.
Yeah. And that got me started on rock collections, and I still collect rocks to this day.
Yeah, that's neat. Okay, do you remember any activities with your mother?
Yeah, because I was the only girl, until Tracy came along, and by that time I was leaving. Me and my mom had lots of good time together. She taught me how to sew, and so we'd sew and pick out fabrics and plan sewing projects together, and that was one of our best activities together. And she taught me how to sew real well. She was real thorough about it, real patient, and so I really enjoyed that.
Do you still enjoy sewing?
Yeah, I do. I just don't have the time now that I'm in school, but yeah, it's a lifelong skill, something that when I have more time, I'll be doing again.
Okay. So, it sounds to me like you had as far as activities goes, you had a good relationship with your father when you guys went fishing and with your brothers, and so you were pretty tomboyish.
Yeah.
And so that helped you to fit in quite a bit.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And maybe I wanted to be tomboyish because I think I always kind of saw my mother as the weak, dependent one. And although I loved her, I didn't want to be that way. It seemed like, men had more freedom and
the better side of life.
Right, and so maybe that's why I tended to be a tomboy. Although I still loved my mother very much.
But you didn't want to be like her.
Right.
Okay. Could you tell me how discipline was handled in your family?
Yeah, that was simple. My mom would say, when your dad gets home, and she would just leave it all up to him because she couldn't bear really to spank us. She hardly ever did, I don't think. Well, maybe she thought that it was necessary, but it just somehow went against her nature, and so she'd save everything for when my dad got home, and he'd do the spanking, like with a big belt. I mean, I think it was really extreme a lot of times. Well,
extreme?
Yeah, with my brothers especially. He'd be a little more gentle with me, but he had a big thick belt, and he'd walk with it. And I mean, not to the point of bruising us or anything, but then I'm not into spanking kids.
But it just hurt a lot, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And so in that way we were a little afraid of our father, but it was like the only way I guess they felt that they could control us was to be real authoritarian in that way.
Okay. Oh, let me see. Could you tell me how your family expressed the caring side? Can you give me some examples of how your father showed you love and how your mother showed you love?
Well, my mother was, real hugging, warm kind of person, and we'd cuddle together a lot. And my dad, he was kind of cuddly too, when we were younger. And then as I got to be older, I guess it was more, doing little things that he thought would please us, like he'd go to the auction and buy some unusual, off-the-wall kind of present for us that he could never find any place.
Off-the-wall present?
Yeah, something, like he'd get weird antiques. An old sewing basket he got for me one time on legs, and I thought it was the weirdest looking thing when I first saw it. But then I realized that, to an adult, it would be something really beautiful and unique. And so I really appreciated that, just knowing that he thought of us. And he'd bring, things from the auction home for my brothers, too. I don't remember what theirs were, but they were always real fair about, if they got one thing for one kid, they'd get something for everybody. And another thing with my father, he worked a lot at different times, so we didn't always see a lot of him. But he would take time to take each child separately on some little trip, like into town or maybe it's something 100 miles away if he was buying something and bringing it home. So each kid could have a little time alone with me. And that made us feel real special. That was a good plan that they had doing that.
So even though your father just showed you affection, as far as physical affection when you were little, he did show you that he loved you in his own way when you guys got older.
Yeah.
Like giving you special things and spending extra time with you.
Oh, and one other neat thing I remember when I was a real little kid, like maybe 7, 8, he was going on a trip. He was a long-distance truck driver at this time. And he asked if there was anything I wanted for him to bring back for me. And I was kind of surprised because he never asked me that. And so I had to think of something real quick, and I said, red pajamas. Because I kind of had it in my mind I wanted red pajamas. And he got home days later, and he